Hello and welcome to the August edition of the Hey Legal Social. We are live on YouTube and Twitter, and we're delighted that you are joining us tonight. We hope that you've had a good summer. Hello to everyone else who watches this on catch up. We're delighted that you are keeping on following us on there too. So the social is a live stream where we look to cover interesting legal stories. Anything a bit unusual in the legal sector is always welcome on here. Past episodes are attracting about 1,000 views, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you all for watching and getting involved. Tonight we have two main topics. The first is a brilliant new book focusing on treasures and stories discovered in the vaults of Scottish law firm Anderson Strathern. So we'll be hearing from author Ewan McCall all about the weird and wonderful tales that he unearthed. With the end of the practice year looming, we talk all things CPD. We're delighted to have Rachel Steer from the Law Society of Scotland with us tonight. She will also be joined by the Director of Education, Rob Mars. So let's get started. So welcome, Ewan. Good to have you.
Pleasure to be here, Edith. Thank you so much.
No doubt you were a bit daunted thinking of a bunch of lawyers. You've probably spent a lot of time digging about in these vaults, so probably speaking to lawyers is the last thing you want. But delighted you've agreed to come on.
Well, most of the lawyers that I've been researching have been dead for at least 100 years, so it's a pleasure to be speaking to some living ones.
Oh, so some may say that about the living ones already as well. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So Ewan, obviously the book is about Anderson Strathern, and we've got a little synopsis which we've just taken straight from your book, which I think we're going to put on the screen, and I'm just going to read this out just to give a bit of a flavour of the book before we start to have a chat with you. So 3 huge iron chests lay locked in the office of a law firm. Their ancient mechanisms jealously guarded secrets of Scotland's past. No one had seen inside the chest for over a century or knew what they contained. When the bolts were finally opened, the artefacts contained in these chests revealed more than anyone had expected. From early monasteries to the digital age, from Robert the Bruce to Adam Smith, from Jacobite search warrants to twins switched at birth, the lost material from these archives has enabled us to reconstruct the lifetimes of some of the most romantic, bizarre, heroic and villainous characters to brush shoulders with the law. Their stories reveal very human expressions of the inner conflicts of empire, enlightenment, industrialization and democratization. No profession is better placed than the law to track the trials and tribulations of social change, nor is any so closely involved with the outcome of disputes in which people grapple with their own loyalties, sensibilities and sexualities. Pivoting between popes, plots, prime ministers and prime suspects, this kaleidoscopic tour of Scotland's past may change our perception of the present. So, Ewan, you are a writer and a campaigner specialising in the Scottish Enlightenment and the East India Company. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I've been sort of working around about this sphere, mostly through my undergraduate studies that I just completed a couple of years ago. Was hugely attracted to the Scottish Enlightenment as a kind of chapter in Scotland's history that's shaped, everything around us and everything in the world around us, really. But unfortunately, it's kind of so inaccessible and so difficult to really get your head around, and so remote. So I thought the best place to start with trying to change that is through the people that lived in it, who are much more like us than I suppose at first you would expect.
Yeah. And so you started writing Solicitors to Scotland after accidentally stumbling across 18th century ledgers while you were helping to clear out office space at Anderson Strathern. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's right. So I was helping as a favour to clear out, I think it ended up being about 15 tonnes of old paperwork and stuff like that. And people were for putting these 250-year-old things in with everything else. And as a sort of undergraduate historian, I was like, no, you can't do that. That's sacrilege. And opened it up. And lo and behold, Adam Smith's and David Hume were in the books, which is doesn't happen every day. But
So
it really.
What was your connection then with Anderson Strathern? I think you've got relatives, is that right?
Yes, I've got relatives there, and it's been a firm that I've grown up around for a long time, but until recently it had established 1992 above the door, because that was the time of when it was a merger between J&F Anderson and Strathern and Blair. So I was pretty shocked when I discovered these things, and then delving a little bit deeper beneath the surface, these three massive iron chests that had been locked for well over 100 years.
Yeah. So were these particular volumes, the Hume and everything, were those in the iron chests themselves?
No, so they were actually sort of sitting in the law firm's old library from a while before, so completely unconnected at that stage to the chests. But upon opening them, that was a massive trial in itself. Yeah, we managed to find stuff that went. The oldest documents were from 1323, and came all the way through, and a sort of completely unknown 16-page letter by Adam Smith was amongst the contents there as well. So it connected over to that initial discovery of them having been on the books.
And so you obviously were helping clear out, and had these things actually been tossed into like a skip or something, and did you have to retrieve them, or were you stopping people from doing that before it got to that stage?
Yeah, I think we managed to avoid it getting to that stage. I don't think anyone would have seriously ended up hurling them in, especially since there was dozens of them. But yeah, I was very glad to have saved them.
Absolutely. And so you're saying the iron vaults themselves were a job to get into. So how were they found, and how were they accessed?
So they were actually, a couple of them were actually just in complete plain sight in the reception area of the office. I believe beforehand they'd been in an attic in the road premises in the new town of Edinburgh. But I spoke to a guy who'd started working at the firm in 1947. He's 95 years old. And when he started working there, he said no one in living memory when he started had ever seen inside them. We were told it would have been impossible to get in. We were talking with some people about scanning them, like old scrolls from Pompeii and stuff like that. But in the end, we just spoke to a local Edinburgh locksmith, and he managed to get us into them quite easily. In fact, we were reasonably confident there'd be stuff inside them. In fact, probably a bit too confident. We brought together a bunch of lawyers and historians and stuff like that to watch them being cracked open. And when we managed to get the first one open, there was actually nothing apart from old paper clips and ends of cigarettes that had been crammed through the keyhole over the preceding 120 years. So as you can imagine, I was absolutely bricking it at that point, thinking, oh my God. But thankfully, we opened the second one, and it was completely coated in coal, all of these old documents and stuff like that. So that was a huge relief. And afterwards, the real work began in trying to piece together what on earth all this stuff was.
Yeah. And so how did that then progress? How did you go about kind of collating things, or identifying what they were, or just sorting it all out?
Well, in actual fact, the day that we managed to get it open, I took a small bundle of some interesting stuff from the corner away with me, and I went with my partner over to the local Wetherspoons and sat down there. And the first document that I looked at turned out to be the Adam Smith one. And at that point, I thought there's clearly something in this. The research never started off with the intention of it becoming a book. For probably the majority of writing it, it was sort of a mixture of a dissertation for uni, and also sort of reworking a book that Anderson Strathern had put together about 20 years before. But it snowballed from there as the stories and the people started to really come out. Absolutely bizarre stuff the deeper you got into the text. Pieces of hair, old Bibles. There was blood-stained search warrants for Jacobite ships. Certainly, if you're happy, I can tell you this. I can tell you some of the strangest things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Maybe just before we go on to that, I was just going to ask you just how long it took to kind of go through everything, and how long did that process take?
You know, sort of concurrent to finishing off my undergraduate degree, it was probably about 2 years, give or take. And you know, beyond.
So I was going to ask if your dissertation was formed out of that as well. Were you still writing that alongside doing all this extra work?
Yeah, so the dissertation pretty much is chapter 3 of the book, on the East India Company and the really bad stuff, as you can imagine, that some Scots were getting up to over in India at the time.
Yeah. So you can tell us some of the fascinating aspects of what you found. What really weird stuff did you find?
So I think definitely the strangest one, so almost everything, of course, is letters. Of course, there's a few, you know, odd bits and pieces, you know, old Bibles, you know, drawing. There was a drawing of some person only described as Muir, being depicted as the devil, being hung by the personification of justice. Don't know who Muir is at the moment, but certainly the strangest thing that I found was a series of letters, which were written in Basra in the Middle East in 1770 by a young man called James Beck, who was a lawyer. And it was actually what I can best describe as sort of erotic fiction intended for elderly women in Ireland, in Dublin. So there was probably about 250 pages of that stuff. The guy had beautiful handwriting as well, so you could read straight through it, and yeah, he really got into it, and clearly he had his pen pals over in Ireland who did as well.
Wow, goodness me! So what other weird or interesting stuff did you come across?
Certainly something that was particularly interesting to me was some more information about an incident called the Douglas Cause. It was a huge scandal across the whole world, one of the first ever sort of celebrity scandals, which was essentially the Duke of Douglas's heir had eloped to France. She was a 47-year-old lady, and she came back with twins, who a number of people claimed were not her own and had actually been stolen from France. Of course, if they were recognised as the heirs, they would have been in line to inherit the biggest fortune in Europe at the time, as well as the titles of the Duke of Douglas. Lady Jane Douglas, she actually died, and after that point, the whole incident went up for debate. Every major player in Europe at the time, Voltaire, David Hume, everyone levelled in. People were challenged to duels over it in front of Palace of Westminster down in London. People ransacked Holyrood House in Edinburgh. And a really interesting piece. So the lawyer, the sort of influential Enlightenment lawyer of Anderson Strathern, John Davidson, was one of the several lawyers that worked on the case. And a snippet that we found, this was in the archives rather than the chest themselves, this particular piece. He said to Adam Smith, the things that we discovered at that time, we must never talk about again. So there's clearly, they managed to find all of the dirty laundry of the entire aristocracy of Scotland in that time, as they spent the equivalent of about £40 million in legal fees on it over the course of a few years. So that was fascinating. Yeah, and and certainly going more into the recent times, one of the clerks of the firm in the 1880s, John Inglis, he was actually, which you wouldn't expect for the time, he was a very, very ardent atheist, socialist, believer in solar power energy and vegan in the 1880s, and he got into quite a lot of trouble by throwing a Bible into a fire around about the time. But interestingly enough, he was kept on as a really sort of valued member of the firm through this time, and cut a really interesting figure.
So obviously all these things were found and had been sealed and locked away for a very, very long time. You mentioned that obviously we know that they now form this book, but you said that at first there might be some other use, or you were thinking to put them to some other use. How did it come to be that you thought, no, a book's the way forward for all of these things?
As the discoveries went on, going all the way back 1323 through John Skene, who helped to instigate the witch trials in Scotland in the 1590s. Through the 17th century, there's sort of scandalous letters from the court of Charles II through the Enlightenment, industrialization, democratization, the arrival of women into the legal profession. The amount of content absolutely bloomed beyond what we previously expected. And by the time that it started to hit 20, 30,000 words, a number of people, including Sir Tom Devine, the Scottish historian, were saying it's definitely stuff that would be of interest to the wider sort of Scottish community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was one story you and I wanted to ask you about that I just remembered, the tiger story. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, right, okay. Well, this actually connects into the story about the guy who was writing the sort of erotic fan fiction of 1770s. So essentially, he went out to India to try and make a fortune after sleeping with the deputy head of the East India Company. This, of course, is all sort of not really public knowledge. It's all stuff that's sort of been tied up in these letters in the chest. He went out and he started a business venture with this other guy, Charles Stewart. He ended up having what seems to have been a really actually loving relationship with an Indian woman whilst he was out there, and he had a few children with her. And he wrote out a one-page will saying that the full fortune should go to these children who he had with Champi, his Indian wife. He went off to be the paymaster with the East India Company Army during a war with Tipu Sultan. Long story short, he got captured, marched off to Tipu Sultan's capital and fed a tiger. He obviously died, as you might expect. But afterwards, he had a fortune of about £8 million in today's money, which was completely up in the air. And his daughter, who by this point was his last surviving descendant, who was about 4, ended up getting cut out by the authorities of empire from inheriting this fortune. What ended up happening, essentially, was that James Beck, the guy who was writing the stories, decided that he would take Charlotte, the little girl, to the court of George III to try and press her claim. He went with them. He actually brought slaves with him on the voyage over. This voyage, tens of people died during it, mercury poisoning, all sorts of stuff. Tom and Mary, the 2 enslaved people that he brought along, actually escaped from them at St. Helena on the way over. They got over to the court of George III, and Champi, the little girl, they said that they would hear her case. James then went to go and live with the second in command of the East India Company at the time. He actually went into the house. This was the guy that he'd slept with to get the job originally, and he never came out alive. The days after, they sent out notes saying that he'd committed suicide in the house, but in all likelihood, it looks as if he could have been murdered. for whichever reason, I'm not quite sure. People can come to their own conclusions. But I'm happy to say that the little girl whose dad had been eaten by the tiger ended up actually getting united with her Scottish family. And thanks to Alexander Duncan, who was a sort of partner of the earlier Anderson Strathern, she managed to actually get her money, and she married a guy in Fife and went and lived the rest of her days in St Andrews to ripe old age. So there can be happy endings in the world, but certainly there was a lot of really terrible stuff that went on to lead up to that.
Yeah, that's certainly some tale. But fascinating stuff, Ewan. Absolutely incredible. So tell us, where can we buy the book? Where can we get hold of the book from?
So you can buy the book. At the moment, it's online. It's on W.H. Smith. It's on Amazon, and I think actually the best place to buy at the moment is with the publisher themselves, which is Berlin. It's the best place you can find it. It's £13.99. And yeah, the first part of the book, about the first sort of 180 pages, are taking you through this kind of bizarre tour of Scotland's history as seen through this single law firm. And then the last part is just the transcription of some of the most interesting letters, including these stories from James Beck, tourist holidays going through the Highlands, people in the Church of Scotland in the 1720s begging for relief from the General Assembly, and these sort of conspiratorial letters from the court of Charles II are all in there in the back. So it's hopefully something that would be of interest to people, and I've tried to make it funny as well, so it should be good.
Absolutely. What a fascinating book, and just even the small clippets you've explained to us tonight are just give a real taster of what it contains. So I'm sure that there'll be lots of people looking to get their copies of that. Ewan, thank you so much. I think Ali Thompson may be coming on. He may have some questions of his own, because I know he's fascinated by it. I know he looks as if he's in D Hall at Berlin, but I'm assured he is at home. With him. Ali, how are you? Oh, you're on mute.
Classic online moment. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Brilliant discussion. Ewan, thank you so much for joining us in relation to this. I just wanted to ask you one thing, which was, when you start to, you get this opportunity, you're starting to see these documents. How does it actually feel to be just thinking you're the person that's going to just look at this document next and not know what it's going to reveal? It must be a pretty amazing situation to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrifying experience, to be honest, because of course we've all grown up seeing people on Antique Roadshow with white gloves and stuff like that, flipping over the documents, and then you bring these things out and they're so battered and they've got coal dust all over them. But I mean, a few moments, when I was reading about the tiger, they were talking about it so nonchalantly. Your mouth just absolutely drops. And it's such a privilege, because people haven't read a lot of this stuff for at least 200 years, the stuff in these chests. And a big part of doing this was just trying to do people justice, and if they've been morally ambiguous characters, trying to capture that in a way that is representative of their life and things like that. So it was really a great privilege, and I think we're definitely going to make sure that these documents are preserved and go through, so that anyone can pop through to the national records and read them themselves, and maybe try and work out if James Beck was murdered or killed, or what on earth happened with him.
No, it's brilliant. I'm sure there's many more aspects of it to continue to investigate. We've put the link for purchasing your book in the description here, and we'll put that into the promotion of tonight's event as well. So I'm sure many people will want to follow up on this, and it genuinely sounds fascinating. I really mean that. So look forward to reading it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Thanks, Ali, and thanks to you too.
Thanks, Ewan. Really, really great to talk to you, and thanks for coming on to speak to us lawyer folk.
Yeah, it makes a nice change to be speaking to people rather than going through 300-year-old letters of lawyers. So yeah, absolute pleasure, and yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ewan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I think we're now going to take a short break before we return to talk about CPD. Ali, you're going to stay on, I think, for this next section as well, making an appearance tonight, which is not like you normally. You're hiding behind the camera, the controls. So good to have you on.
Thank you very much. I'll just play this trailer.
Okay. So we're back. We made a brief appearance there in between the advert and the trailer. And Rachel, we're joined by you. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and have a chat tonight. Rachel, you obviously you're the CPD Projects Officer at the Law Society of Scotland. So thank you for coming on. Really nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I should have gone first because that was a very hard act to follow, but nevertheless.
No, Rachel, you just need to tell us a story involving a tiger or something like that. And you'll be fine.
I know, well, that's why I was trying to think. I thought, oh my God, I have no solicitors being fed to tiger stories at our CPD event, so I'm sorry to let down.
Brilliant.
No, and I think we're going to be joined in a little while by Rob Mars, who's the Director of Education at the Law Society too. So that'll be great to have Rob on as well. So, as we know, Rachel, the year is disappearing, and it will soon be the end of the year. We'll all be asked to produce our records of CPD. So it's probably something that we as lawyers are turning to think about at this time of year. So what then is coming up? Rachel, can you maybe give us a chat through of what's coming up in the CPD calendar?
Yeah, sure. So now is a very good time to be doing your CPD, as we still have quite a lot of events left to go before the 31st of October. So we have a couple of flagship conferences coming up before the end of the CPD year, which we're really excited about as they're both being run hybrid. So it's a really good opportunity to catch up with colleagues, old and new. So coming up first, we have, I think you just saw the little trailer there for our Law and Technology Conference, which is on the 20th of September at the Technology and Innovation Centre in Glasgow, and then obviously online for those who can't attend the venue. So main sort of features of this conference is it covers some of the most pressing trends and issues surrounding legal tech. So we do know and appreciate that legal tech can be a bit of a daunting field for some. However, unfortunately or fortunately for some, it is inevitable, and it also brings around a lot of opportunities within the legal field as well. So this year, our conference will bring in the experts, so to speak, to settle these concerns that you might have about the changes that are happening just now in the legal field, and give you the opportunity to learn from those who are already adapting to and consequently benefiting from technological change within their firm or within their practice. So some of the highlights that we have currently lined up are the tensions between AI and IP law with Usman Tariq, who has a great reputation for dealing with information technology disputes. We also have comments on fintech and the metaverse, which I really hope nobody has any questions on, because these are just words to me, unfortunately. But I'm sure it'll be a very interesting session, and I'm told that there has been very significant developments in these fields even over the past year. So there'll also be a great panel discussion about how to use tech to enhance the client experience and add value to your firm. So this session will be especially useful, as the panel will discuss how to use tech to improve accessibility to legal services, not only for disabled clients, but also for disabled lawyers and colleagues themselves. So yeah, that's a very full programme, with more being added to it in the next couple of weeks. So you can find all of the programme information and details of all our speakers on the Lawscot website. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, but the information's all on the website, and people just need to go on there, see what takes their fancy.
Yeah, so the information. Yeah, exactly. The information's all on the website, everything you need to know. There's full programme details, and obviously that's being constantly added to as we secure more speakers and more sessions. And obviously, if you have any questions surrounding what's going on in the day, you can always email us at cpd@lawscot.org.uk. More than happy to pass over questions if there's any sessions you'd like to delve a little bit deeper into. So that's our Legal Tech Conference, which is obviously one of our main hybrid conferences coming up. But other than that, we've also got our annual conference, which is also taking place hybridly on the 21st of October, this time in Edinburgh at the EICC. So during this year's conference, our focus is, as always, exploring some of the recent challenges to the profession has faced over the past year or so, and it will offer you some guidance or even some sort of food for thought that will help you navigate your way through the next year as a result of these changes. So our overarching theme for this year focuses on lawyers as disruptors for good. So during the day, we'll cover a whole host of relevant issues, including neurodiversity in the law. And this will help you understand how to best support neurodiverse clients, colleagues. We also have some advice on training the trainee, where we bring in some voices from some of the top names in the profession to discuss these issues. We also discuss things like social mobility and progression, and importantly, we feature a lot of conversation surrounding how we can and all should be lawyering for change. So yeah, we're covering some very big issues, so hopefully that'll gain some insight into maybe what lies for the year ahead as we reflect on the past year. So we're also really excited for our opening keynote speaker, who's the Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain QC. We also have a panel session with Sir Howard Andrew Clive Morrison on professional ethics and the rule of law in international conflict. So yeah, we have a lot. Sorry, that was a bit of a stream of consciousness there. But we do have a lot of great names talking about some really pressing issues that have been unfolding over the past year. And if I'm right, I think, is Rob with us, Ali?
Yes, he is. He is,
oh,
Rachel.
Fab.
Okay, here he is.
Hi, Rob.
Hello all, can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes,
Rob.
we can, Rob. Evening.
Glad. I won't swear coming in from Edinburgh. How are we?
Good, Rob. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, good.
Good.
Children are just about asleep, he says, hopefully.
No, thank you so much for joining us, Rob. And you're actually chairing a session at our annual conference. So Rob Mars is the head of education at the Law Society, and you will be chairing a session on building an inclusive future at our annual conference. So I just wanted to ask you a sort of basic question about what you're excited about in the session, what you hope to cover, anything that we need to be talking about here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It is a good session. The four speakers are Caroline Colston, who is the exec partner, whatever the lead role is at DWF here in Scotland. Ryan McQuaig, who's in NQ at Thornton's, Ashley McPartlin, who heads up D&I at Brody's, and Naima Sajid, who was a partner at Aberdeen Constantine, but now runs her own diversity business, Diversity Plus, and that focuses on professional services. I don't want to pick a favourite because all four of them are genuinely brilliant speakers. I've worked with all of them closely over the years. Caroline, I know, is passionate about D&I. She's really heavily involved with business in the community in Scotland and across the UK, and will bring a lot of the lessons that she's learned there to this programme. I know that's a focus at DWF. Ryan is frankly one of the best speakers around. God, I wish I was as confident as him ever, let alone at the age he is. But an amazing life story, and an inspiration to so many people. I know. I think he's either the chair or the director for Who Cares Scotland, an amazing organisation for those in care, and a shining role model for so many people. He's on the fast track to whatever he wants to go on to become, I suppose, who knows. And then the last two, Naima, again, fascinating backstory, very similar in a way to Ryan's, also very different. I don't think if you'd spoken to Naima at age 16, she would have seen the career coming, but, a fascinating career. Got through law school, having children whilst at law school, and then went off to the Crown, worked in politics for a little while, and then went on to become a family law partner at Aberdeen Constantine, and now running a very successful D&I consultancy. I like working with Naima because she is always unbelievably nice, whilst also making me do better and making the society do better, which is probably the best way to go. And then finally, Ashley, all of the big firms I think are taking D&I a lot more seriously now, but Brody's are doing some really interesting stuff. And only last week they very kindly sponsored and hosted the Legal Services Agency's D&I conference, where everyone got astonishingly excited because Lady Hale was speaking in person. So everybody knew who she was, apart from the one young lady who was ushering people in, and she walked over to Lady Hale and was like, "Are you here for the conference?" And Lady Hale said, "Yes," without saying, "I'm Lady Hale." But so four amazing speakers, all got their heads in the right direction. So I've probably spoken longer here than I will on the day, because there's no point listening to me on that. Those four are the people we should be listening to.
Oh, that's amazing, Rob. That all sounds really, really interesting. Just even that, the section you've just described there. So thank you very much for coming on to explain your particular interest in that and the guests that you're having. And as we've said already, all the details on how to attend the conferences, or indicating whether you want to attend in person or online, can all be found on the Law Society website under CPD and training heading. But you can also, I believe, email cpd@lawscot.org.uk if anyone needs any further information. Is that right, Rachel?
That's right. Yep, you can just email that address and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
It'll probably be me.
Can I just ask Rob, I hope you're not rushing away, Rob, to watch the Premiership football. I don't think Liverpool are playing tonight.
Tomorrow night, yeah, Newcastle.
Tomorrow night.
Newcastle at home.
But I was going to ask about the technology conference.
Yeah.
I know you're obviously very involved in that as well, and I think the numbers are building out for that pretty significantly. And if you could just give a little overview of how the technology conference is growing out and how it's an expanding area of interest.
Well,
please.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think when we first ran the Law and Tech conference, it was pretty small. There was a handful of people who were interested in technology. Let's limit it to that. But over the last 3 or 4 years, it's really expanded out. Hopefully, it's a bit more inclusive, that people who are wanting to dip their toe in the water of legal technology, learning a bit more about what technology can do for them. are coming along, and typically I think it's either the best or second best attended conference. Is very, very popular. I think one thing I've noticed over the years it's become a lot more practical. I think previously on occasion there were talks about, this is how things are going to change in the future, whereas now this is Usman's talk on AI and IP. I think that's going to be very focused on matters that are coming up right now, issues that are happening live in Scotland, Scottish businesses, and in Scottish courts and Scottish DR. So, obviously you've got somebody, earlier on in the day, you've got somebody like Lee Kirkpatrick. I've actually had a coffee this afternoon with one of her team, and that if you listen to the team at NatWest RBS, as I still call them, you do see that they are looking at innovation in a way that probably 5-6 years ago everybody said innovation. It was just a word that you said because you thought you had to say it. I think they're really clear about what they mean by that, pushing providers of legal services to them, but even in how they look at things. So, they've innovated around failure camps in the business. They've innovated around using the Delta model within the business. They've really pushed the idea of psychological safety, and within that sort of radical candor to really push the team on. So it's not always technology. I know people like Alex Smith and so on, and Mitch Kowalski and whoever will be saying, it's people, process, tech, and they're absolutely right. Tech's the last thing you need to look at. So, and I think that the conference is beginning to, over the last couple of years, has really drilled down into that, and I think it has again this year.
Yep, sounds brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a brilliant day. And again, I think it's free for members to attend that one as well. So
that's spot on. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
No, I think Rachel will be texting me if I got that wrong, but yeah, it is.
No, it is free. Yeah, free for members, sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Listen, thanks, Rob, so much. You were just dropping in to give us that info. That's been brilliant insight. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on to the Hey Legal Social, so thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. I better go have my dinner. Cheers all.
Bye, Rob.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
So Ali, I think that's lots of stuff going on in the Law Society, but we at Hey Legal also have some courses. So I wonder, do you want to chat to them?
Yeah, well, that's obviously the really big news. I mean, the annual conference and the tech conference are all well and good, but obviously, the big news is we're delighted, obviously in partnership with the Law Society, but we've created some online courses, 2-hour courses. We focused in on areas of need that lawyers were telling us they really wanted to know an awful lot more about. So we have focused on technology and winning business online. So these are two areas where we think the vast majority of lawyers are very interested, but just possibly lack the skills or confidence around these areas and really often don't know where to start. So we've created short courses, 2 hours duration, micro lessons within them, so 15-minute modules. So just the way you probably want to consume content, you want to make good, quick progress. And we're hoping there'll be a fairly significant transformation for people who do the courses, because they'll go from not needing any form of previous knowledge or experience of these types of topics into becoming either tech literate or able to actually go out and start to win business online for themselves and for their law firms. So we know people are really busy. Nobody wants extra work to do, but you want to make quick wins. So that's the plan there. So again, on the Law Society website, Rachel, they are available. Yeah. And early bird offer, I should say, I believe. Is that correct, Rachel?
That's right. Yeah, I think we've got the early bird going until the 20th of September, I think. Yeah. So if you get in quick, you'll be able to save 20% with the early bird rate.
Perfect. Well, I mean, the idea is around these courses. In the past, sometimes we've created things and you can find yourself just hearing why something's really important. It's like, technology is really important. You really should know about it. and you spend the whole time hearing how important it is, then at the end of it, you still don't know how to do anything about it. Whereas the focus here is on how you actually can do things. So how do you start? So for technology, how do you use the cloud? How do you start to move innovation forward in your practice and do different things? So it should be really interesting, hoping that it becomes something that everyone in the profession actually wants to do. And you get a certificate as well, which, I mean, who doesn't want to get a badge or a certificate that says you've completed something? Put that on your website profile page, and because clients are obviously very keen to have lawyers that know how to use technology and to communicate well. So that's the big news here. We only launched that last week, was it, Rachel?
That's right. Yep, last week we started. But
Yeah.
no, it's been great. It's been a real passion project of Ali's, and it's been great work. He's the brains behind all of it. But no, I think you're spot on, Ali. And I think what the good thing about these courses is for everyone. It's not specific to a certain part of the profession, a certain age, how many years you've been in the profession. It really is for everyone. And as you said, it's not just talking about, legal technology is important. It's actually taking you through the step-by-step. From the modules that I've seen anyway, it's actually taking you through the step-by-step of how to just get started on moving your career forward or your firm forward. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Rachel. That all sounds good. Great feedback. I'd love to think I was the brains behind these, but
No.
I'll keep. Well, yeah, I better move on. But we should also mention that we have the Shaping Your Success channel, which is on the Law Society's website again. You can access all of these from the Hey Legal website too, but the main location for them is on the Law Society's website. And the Shaping Your Success channel brings free content every month, and it features innovators, disruptors, people from beyond the legal profession, all giving their insight into how they think lawyers can maybe do things differently, think differently, and that links into the courses developed, which is really good. Part of Shaping Your Success featured an interview that I did with Donald Finlay QC, who will be known to our audience very well, and it featured on why lawyers should be fearless. And that's been the most popular episode that we've had thus far by some distance. And that has led to the development of what's going to be an additional course that's going to come up. And Edith, I think, is going to tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, certainly. The course, as you say, is still in development, but we have in mind and now on paper or digitally a plan for a course on representing clients fearlessly, and just general fearless advocacy, which doesn't, albeit it'll be myself and Donald who are doing the training, as it were, both court lawyers. These skills transfer across all aspects of law and all disciplines of law. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now that we've said it on here, we need to crack on and get it done, which I think is just the hardest bit of all. But yes, looking forward to that, and just fearless advocacy, which will be fantastic. Donald's amazing, and hopefully we can get that course up and running soon. So watch this space.
Watch this space. So we'll look forward to the release of that imminently. Then, I think the key thing to that is though that the content that we did create with Donald, I think all lawyers who've watched that, there's over 5,000 views of one of the excerpts from it, and my thinking around it was that there was a good engagement with that, because when a lawyer watched it, I think they felt emboldened about the work that they do and the way that they go about things, and they felt good. Sometimes doing, lawyers, it can be hard to stay positive about the work you're doing because it's so demanding. But I think a course that features in on key characteristics that allow you to think like that and to act and to really be able to represent your clients, well, we say fearlessly, but doing robust professional work, I think that people will be really keen to to hear more about that. And the good thing as well is it's not just an audience that would be limited to Scotland. It's applicable, as are the other courses, to anywhere in the world, really. These are skills that everyone really needs in the legal careers. So we're hopeful of having some of an international audience as well, and some international participants.
Absolutely.
I think there are invites going out, I believe, to other speakers in other jurisdictions. So we'll look forward to hearing the guest list.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on, as we've heard, from the Law Society to Hey Legal or combined courses, which is great. But yeah, we thought tonight it would be good just to talk about CPD, because you hit October, whatever, and I think, goodness, I've got absolutely nothing done. But there's plenty on offer, as we're hearing from the Law Society and elsewhere. So no excuses to be scrabbling about at the last minute for hours or going into seminars that you really have no interest in whatsoever. And that's the whole ethos behind it as well. It's not just clocking hours, it's about learning and enjoying learning and having fun whilst you're doing it. There's nothing worse than sitting listening to a dry lecture on something and going away with absolutely hee-haw at the end of it. To be able to engage and do these things is very meaningful. So yeah, it's all ramping up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've always tried, or the ethos is to have learning that doesn't feel like extra work. If it feels like extra work, that's telling you something. Whereas if we create the right type of content, then people are hopefully going to relax, watch, enjoy it, learn from it, take away practical skills and things that can actually help you day to day. That's really what everyone's after, we hope. So those are the plans. So thank you for that, Edith. And thank you, Rachel. That's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Really interesting.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
So I think that's probably us for tonight, Ali. We'll get your bail application in first thing in the morning. Try and get so
that'll be refused. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you both very much. It's been great. Another edition of the Hey Legal Social. So people will watch this and catch up as well. So I hope they get some benefit from it. It was brilliant to hear from Ewan earlier, and hopefully people go out and buy that book as well. I do genuinely think there's a lot in there. I'd learn a lot about Scottish history as well, I have to say, from it. So I think in all sorts of levels it works really well. So we certainly wish him every success with that too. So thank you both very much.
Thank you. Nice to see you here. And Rachel, nice to see you too. So thanks again.
Nice to see you. Thanks very much. See you later. Have a good night.
Bye.